Coming over yesterday's plea hearing were recent claims from two IRS whistleblowers who helped lead the investigation of Hunter Biden. And they have testified that the Justice Department gave preferential treatment, they believe, to the president's son. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan actually credited the whistleblowers for the collapse of the plea deal yesterday. But that's not what happened in court. The judge, the DOJ, and Hunter Biden's attorneys all agreed that the judge didn't have the power to order prosecutors to redo their probe or consider charging decisions if she thought the investigation was lacking. Still, here's what Jordan said.
I think it's all driven by whistleblowers and just how credible those individuals are. And the fact that their testimony has not been consistent, unlike the White House, their story.
I want to play for you now what one of those IRS whistleblowers told Congress under oath last week.
It appeared to me, based on what I experienced, that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware in our investigation was constantly hamstrung, limited, and marginalized by DOJ officials as well as other U.S. attorneys. I still think that a special counsel is necessary for this investigation.
That was Joseph Ziegler. He joins us now. He was the lead IRS case agent on the Hunter Biden investigation. We should note he also says he grew up in a conservative household, but now identifies as a Democrat with, in his words, middle-of-the-road views. We appreciate your time this morning.
I appreciate you having me on your show.
What is your reaction to the plea deal being put on hold?
Yeah, so I think based on the judge's reaction and what happened yesterday, that she acted impartial. She acted independent. I think it showed that the prosecution rushed this agreement through and mismanaged the situation, and he could have gotten off with an easy deal. But with the judge and her reaction saying that this is not normal, I think it's important that people see that, hey, the judicial system is working, and you have someone that is looking at what is happening here, and they're seeing that this is not normal and that we have to treat everyone the same.
It is possible that they work this out in the next 30 days and that Hunter Biden does plead to two misdemeanors and deferring on a gun charge. That's possible, well, if his attorneys agree that the other things can remain open. You asked for a special counsel in your testimony. Chris Christie, Republican presidential candidate, agrees with you. He said yesterday at this point he thinks we need one. What do you believe a special counsel could do that Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney David Weiss can't do?
So, and it's clear from David Weiss's most recent letter, he only has ultimate authority in his judicial district, the District of Delaware. So if there are crimes that are occurring, so offshoot investigations, these spin-offs, the ongoing investigation, and if those crimes are venued elsewhere, according to his letter, he only has authority in the District of Delaware, and he was afforded, or he was told that he would be given that authority to pursue charges outside of there. But there's no letter, there's no document, there's nothing that's there that indicates that he has that power to do that, and that should concern people.
Joseph, you're talking about the June 7th letter that he wrote to members of Congress. Let me read that in part, the part that you're referring to. I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including the responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges. That's key, where, when, and whether to file charges, and for making decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of the prosecution. What specific avenues of investigation do you want pursued that you believe were prevented?
So, again, as far as this investigation goes, and a part of our testimony, we did not follow the normal process. We did not follow normal investigative leads that we would normally want to follow as a part of a tax investigation. Tax investigations are quite complex. We interview a lot of witnesses. You have to follow the money. An example of my testimony was President Joe Biden's sister, Valerie Owens. There was financial transactions. We were not allowed to go and interview that witness.
Who told you not to?
So that was handed down to us from the assigned prosecutors. And I think one thing that came up yesterday from the judge, so that came down from the assigned prosecutors, so either AUSA Leslie Wolf, Department of Justice Tax Attorney Mark Daley, so the people who were working on our investigation with us.
You have questioned whether David Weiss had full authority, and in that part of the letter I read to you, he believes, and he said to Congress in this letter, that he does. do you believe that someone stopped David Weiss?
So all I can go back to is what we stated in our testimony. We know that the Department of Justice went to the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office to bring the 2014 and 2015 felony and misdemeanor tax charges there. They said no. We also know that he went to the District of California, a President Biden-appointed U.S. attorney, to charge that case, the felony and misdemeanor charges there. He was told no. So all along, we're trying to bring these charges in the different venues.
Just to the response to that has been contested, that assertion that he went elsewhere and was prevented by the Attorney General. You know, this case, as you well know, because you were lead on it, for 2 years, this investigation went on under the Trump administration, and Bill Barr, in December of 2020, said this about it. He said, I think to the extent there's an investigation, I think it's being handled responsibly and professionally. He went on to say that he sees no reason to appoint a special counsel. Why was this not charged in those 2 years? And do you disagree with what Bill Barr asserted there?
Yeah, so I don't know what basis for that statement, and I'm not going to speculate as to why. What I can tell you is that after D.C. said no, us agents on the team, including the FBI, we were trying to figure out internally how to bring on a special counsel. We already saw that there was improper things being done. And as law enforcement officers, we make an oath to the office to do the right thing. I think that's so important, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of what your political beliefs are. We have to be impartial and we have to be fair to taxpayers, people that are paying their fair share of taxes. And in this case, we thought all along that David Weiss was going to do the right thing for the right reasons. I can recall saying that so many times. But when he only charged 2 misdemeanor counts and did not charge the felony when the felony charges were recommended for approval, I'm sorry, we're not treating all taxpayers the same.
2 more quick questions for you. And look, it takes a lot of guts. I just want to note this for our audience. It takes a lot of guts. I know you've said you're worried that your job was on the line when you came out here publicly to testify. 2 final questions for you. One is, how do you know David Weiss and his team aren't doing that now? Clearly, the investigation is still ongoing.
So you are correct. I was removed from the team May 15th. I wasn't provided with a reason why. I don't know. I do not know that answer. But what I'm asking for is we need to have someone with independent authority, with full authority, that special counsel authority, that can charge that in venues outside of the District of Delaware.
The one thing I would just say about special counsel, so people understand the difference here, is David Weiss, as a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, has the authority to follow leads where they will take him and his team. A special counsel, the way that operates, they have to operate within sort of the 4 corners of what an attorney general sets for them. And if they want to expand the investigation, they have to go back to the AG, get permission to do that, and keep going. So there is the argument to be made that actually David Weiss has more independence here.
So the fact that that it's being stated that he has more independence, I would go to 2 President Biden U.S. attorneys, both saying no to bringing charges in their districts, and the charges not being brought. Like we said, it's in Department of Justice tax manual. It's in their tax manual that you have to charge the felony with the misdemeanor. You have taxpayers who are right now in New England that were charged. These are fishermen. It's a fisherman case. They were charged with misdemeanor and felony tax charges for failing to file tax returns. I'm sure that those people would like the same agreement that Hunter got in this situation. And that's my argument, is we have to treat people the same in our investigations and how we move forward those investigations.
Okay. And to the point that you're making, the allegation that they were blocked by other U.S. attorneys, that has been contested by their office. Joseph, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ellie Honig is back with us.